Today's episode is brought to you by Josh Allen.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I'm your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, my man. Just trying to get everything caught up here. Took the week off last week. My apologies for that. I had like the literal worst day of work in human history.
Yeah, I remember you. I remember you messaging me and being like, "Yeah, I'm still in this meeting." I'm like, "Man, that stinks." And you're like, "Yeah, I've been in it since 9 a.m." I'm like,
yeah, my phone rang at 9 a.m. I think I hung up at like 6:30 or something like that.
Jeez.
And I didn't have talking left in me. And I don't even think I made it to my apartment in time for showtime anyways. So yeah, it was a brutal Monday.
Yeah, it's just another manic Monday. But it's okay because you were rewarded in the end by the Bills.
Also the Outlaws, but we'll
and the Outlaws.
that one later.
We'll talk in depth about that, but we can use our brief minutes at the pre-show to really just clap it up for the Buffalo Bills.
Oh,
winning
man. Any Vikings fans out there? At ZPTV. Just send him eyes.
No, it's Tempo ZP. Tempo ZP.
Oh, okay, that's right.
But yeah, that was the Bills won I think the biggest underdog in 22 years or something.
Yeah, so they weren't the biggest underdog to win, but like there's never been an upset like that. Basically, then all sports radio today that I've been listening to has been talking about it. Mm-hmm. We were 17-point underdogs, which is near unheard of in the NFL. Not actually unheard of. It's happened before. The Browns exist. But they won this week.
They also won. Yeah.
So anyways, we were like 17-point underdogs by the time the game kicked off, and then we covered the spread by like 40 points or something like that because of how bad we beat them.
It was 27-6, I think.
Yeah, so it was I think 30 around. It was over 30. I think we covered the spread by. So and you just never see you'll see the underdog win in situations like that. But you never see the underdog dominate like we did in that game. So it was great to see. And unfortunately, my strategy for fantasy football this weekend was just, hey, crease, crumple, and cram every Minnesota Viking you possibly can into your lineup. But the Steelers can pull it out for me tonight.
Nice. So even though you betrayed your team in order for personal glory,
no, sir,
it still might work.
Yeah, I could have the best football week possible.
That's true. You can literally have your cake and eat it too.
Right.
Okay, I already feel dirty having talked this much about football. I feel like
I'll do another hour.
I feel like I knew way more about football this week than I usually do because I listened to sports radio on the way into work today because I have to go into work in the morning. Ugh, it's a nasty feeling. It's terrible. It is terrible. But let's talk about what High Noon Productions has been up to this week. Blackwatch Report continuing the slog this week. Obviously, Contenders is over. They talked about Open Division and some Tier 3 stuff this week, so definitely check that out on the Blackwatch Report iTunes feed. Around the Payload came back, and there were no catastrophic explosions, except maybe for Kyle's performance on the show. But no physical explosions that caused the show not to be aired. I tried to get back the whole cast, but someone didn't show up, so I had to fill in. We had to get a fill in, but it was great. Mel Arena, Kyle Wynn, Volamil, and the newcomer, Mushu Beef. Very good episode. And so definitely check that out.
Before we forget to mention it here, I just want to point out to anybody that missed it, didn't watch it last week, but in lieu of last week's episode, we had put out a season 2 mock draft for the expansion teams that featured Blaze and Bob playing GM for the Paris team, who just took an absolute meme-tastic squad that might not be super crazy in the long run. Then we've got Hangzhou was Scrubosaurus. We had Yiska for Toronto, Kyle for Vancouver, the Monkey Prince for Atlanta. I was playing the role of the Washington, D.C. team. I also won the draft. No big. Valamu was
Valamu.
taking care of Chengdel. No, Chengdu was GM'd by Valamel in this exercise, and Guangzhou was A. Smith. So big shout outs and thank you to everybody that participated in that. It was a whole lot of fun. There is no video for it because fun thing about getting 8 video feeds into a Discord window and trying to stream it, it will make a mediocre computer like mine melt down, which is basically what happened.
But, yeah, it's no, there's no way that would work for
but the audio is good.
Audio is good, and people really liked that. So like a lot. So I think that's that type of content is a really good avenue to go down. So if you guys ever have ideas, even if it's stupid stuff like either mock drafts or I don't know, something that we can either do ourselves or reach out to the community and maybe collab with, let us know, because that's if that's the type of stuff that you guys like to hear or see, it's the type of stuff we like to do. I mean, luckily for everyone that participated, I wasn't able to be there, so I easily would have won. I've won everything we've done so far.
Whatever you've got to tell yourself to sleep at night, my friend.
What I do need to tell myself to sleep at night is that for those of you who have missed it, we had Uber Shouts, the Overwatch League caster, on the last High Noon Hot Seat Overwatch talent casting thing. I already forgot.
It has an official name. Yeah, we gotta remember it.
I don't remember it. Overwatch League talent interview series.
There we go. That's it.
We had Uber on 2 weeks ago, but that episode is up, and Doa is our guest for Thursday. So make sure to get your questions in on the Discord in the hot seat, hot seat questions or whatever. I always forget what it is. But there's a place on Discord to get them somewhere on Discord that we can see them, and we will get those into him. Hot seat questions on Discord, discord.me/High Noon Podcast. That is happening on Thursday, the 27th. I think I'm pretty sure that's the day. Thursday the 27th, 7 Eastern, Doa. Be there or be square. Of course, we'll be streaming it on twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast like we do all the time. But let's move on and talk about what we did last week. We already talked about the Bills and the joyous football occasions for you, Death, but anything else fun and exciting happened for you?
Did some placements on my main, and I'm like really pushing the transition into a main tank player now. So I was really happy to stay in Masters as a result of that.
Nice.
And when you look at my stats, they're pretty good. Like I'm talking like 95th plus percentile on most stats for Reinhardt among Masters players, stuff like that. So my Winston stats we will talk about another time once I fix them. But,
we're doing meme of the week next segment. So
we'll worry about my Winston stats when we get there. But yeah, so that's been going really, really well. Playing a bunch with the group. Even one of my alts is basically like knocking on the door of Masters soon.
Nice.
So no, not nice. I want the alts to be low, but I won't throw. But yeah, so just been trying to play as much as I can. Me and you got into Diablo a little bit as a new season.
Diablo, yeah.
So that's pretty fun, and I've officially joined the Artifact waiting room that is Evans' stream. So.
Yes. Yeah. The Artifact waiting room is real. I've done all sorts of content for that, but I don't even need to plug that. If you're interested in Artifact content, hit me up and I'll show you where it is. But so been doing that. Diablo has been actually pretty fun for me, which is surprising because that's generally not how Diablo is. But the Necromancer is fun, and yes, Deckard Cain has returned to play Diablo 3. It's good stuff. I'm having fun, so I'm gonna keep playing that. Of course in the Artifact waiting room, which is where I currently am at all times. But enough about me. Let's move on to my favorite segment. Whoa, that is just not the button I wanted to press. Okay, well, there's everyone got to see the show notes. What in the world? Why did that button do that? Oh, there we go.
Times like this, I'm glad you edit the show now.
That's not getting edited out. It's just everyone. I'm just really glad that there wasn't something inappropriate on that screen. So maybe that's just the meme of the week in and of itself. But no, we've got a meme of the week from the Twitter account, which has been getting a lot of traction lately, and I do suggest that you follow it. It's at @slasher_news. It's not the real slasher; it's fake slasher. I don't even know. I don't even know who manages it. Maybe it's actually Slasher. That would be next level. If Slasher ran the fake Slasher account, I wouldn't put it past him. That would be
things I wish I could say but can't because I want to be taken seriously. Account that would
Have you
have
you ever listened to Slash? Okay, the Slasher News account, whoever it may be run by, says this Overwatch World Cup is giving so many legendary matches and rematches, like the Revolutionary War 3 Return of the Brits. Canada fights France in a loser gets Quebec match, and we get to see if a country that lost a war to emus can survive against a well-oiled death machine. That, of course, is in reference to the Overwatch World Cup, which we'll be talking about in a bit. But it would be interesting to see if a country that lost a war to emus could beat the actual mech gods of South Korea.
Yeah, that would be awesome. A lot of there's a couple surprises here. We're going to be going in depth over the 2 qualifiers we missed later in the episode, but I'm super hyped now for BlizzCon coming up. Low key officially got our media passes, so we're really pumped about that. We neither of us got to really inspect the email that we received.
Yeah, I don't know if we can actually say that or not, so maybe we should just leave it at that.
All right, well then that's all we'll say. But yeah, we're going to be there, and we're going to be really
I
excited.
don't think they said that we couldn't, but
yeah, I can't. That's a problem. Especially since we'll be walking around with badges that say media across our chest the whole time we're there.
Well, they can stop us? Absolutely not.
Too big to be stopped. But yeah, so there's a ton of really great matches coming up, as there already were over the past 2 weekends. So we'll be getting to that more soon.
Yes, but let's move on here to
It's news.
And it's the news, and Death, you got it right at the top. This one's for you, bud. I know you've been waiting a while for this one.
Yeah, I've only been calling for this move to happen since stage 2 of last season. So finally, the Houston Outlaws, in literally my dream scenario, have addressed the elephant in the room, the lack of a tracer player. They made a roster acquisition that made a little bit of sense after they let Fact Fiction go, and that was they signed Smurf off of their academy team. We didn't really need him, but he was kind of a standout main tank player on what was not a very good academy team from last season. So they have then taken Smurf and traded him to the San Francisco Shock in exchange for Dante, who was really the lone bright spot in season 1 for the San Francisco Shock on his tracer play.
Baby Bay was decent for a minute.
Baby Bay was okay. I mean, but it was Smurf, not Smurf. Dante was hands down like to me the standout from the beginning of the season. Sure. Just maybe a shade behind what's it called?
Sinatra.
Yeah, Sinatra on that particular hero. Also a really good Sombra player who is really important. You can't forget when, especially in the meta we're currently in right now, how important a well-practiced Sombra player would be. But yeah, listen, this is the exact player I wanted. I didn't want to necessarily bring in another non-English speaking Korean player into the roster. I want that, especially the tracer role. You're flanking, you're getting sight lines nobody else has. You're able to provide a ton of information to the team in a way that a lot of other heroes can't. So Dante was clearly skilled enough to belong on the stage, and when we saw him there for San Francisco, now he's going to bolster really the primary main weakness here that the Houston Outlaws had, the thing that made them just so exceedingly mediocre in stages 2 and 3 during the dive metas. So really pumped to see this happen here. Also, he just fits in. Like he the whole time, like all season 1, he would like have a lot of like goofy interactions where he was like joking around with the guys from the Houston Outlaws. Like I think they really get along and are already friends with this guy. So I think he's going to be a great fit, and I think that's really important for a team like Houston that's so based around and so built on team synergy and teamwork and much more of a family environment I get from that particular team than I do most of them. So I think that's a really important thing that we can't overlook as well. But literally, to me, this is the dream scenario. If this doesn't work out, then I don't know what to do. I'm so pumped for the Houston Outlaws next season. It's kind of crazy right now. So yeah, let's just hibernate like I wanted to do as soon as the season ended and wake up at the start of the season here.
That would mean that you're hibernating through BlizzCon, which I don't think you want to do. But
Also football season, so
yeah,
it's not
I
gonna happen.
know. You're not gonna actually hibernate. You're just going. Your Overwatch mind is gonna hibernate and then go into. You're gonna
Right. Why can't I just be awake
metamorphosis.
for football games and BlizzCon and then sleep until owl season starts again? That would be the dream.
That would be the absolute dream. Just like getting Dante on the Houston Outlaws would have been the absolute dream for you in stage 2. But it's interesting because like, how much Tracer are we actually seeing in the meta right now? Is he even
Right
gonna
now,
play?
not a ton.
Yeah.
But like I said, he slots in really well even in the current meta, right? Like
Right.
he's like the rest of them in that he's not a one trick
Right.
in the sense that a lot of Tracer players are.
Mhm.
Some of his other picks are maybe not often super meta, but
Right.
it's still really important to have them. And when you start to look at basically the way their roster lines up, there's a ton of overlap here too.
Mhm.
So I think there's a good chance they're going to be able to have a really solid DPS rotation. And I think they're going to get a lot of value out of these guys, and the flexibility they have, I think, will keep them from being too linear and too able to be, read outright when they roll out Dante. You're not going to go, okay, well, he's definitely on Tracer. You're going to say, well, maybe he's on Doomfist, or maybe he's on Sombra or something, like, because he's been playing all of those. I don't think we've seen his Doomfist on stage, but I don't know, he's like number 4 on the leaderboard right now, and his most played hero, like everybody on top 500, is Doomfist. So yeah, I'm really pumped about what they're looking like going forward. You get to put your aces in your places now, and let Jake worry about the Hanzo, the Pharah, to a lesser extent the Genji. You
Junkrat.
leave Junkrat. Yeah, well, that's on lockdown. That's one of those. And then obviously you've got Linkser on the Widowmaker, the Genji, and the McCree. Then you've got Arhan on the Genji and the maybe the Doomfist as well. Arhan is a little bit, to me, with this signing, like, how are they going to use him to their best? But at the end of the day, he's a really right. They could. Especially with all these Korean rosters coming up. But I do think the connection with Tyrong is really strong with them. I think they do want to keep him and they plan to use him. The question is just going to be, how do they do it, and what does that look like? But I feel very confident now that they've got all their bases covered. Every hero in the game is well tended.
So one thing that you didn't put on here for the Houston Outlaws that I think may have made you even happier is Clockwork is no longer in a player role on the Houston Outlaws.
Oh, I think we covered that in a previous episode. But yeah,
I don't know if we did. I think we may have covered it on Around the Payload. I think that's what you're thinking.
Oh, okay, yeah. If you didn't know, though, and we didn't cover it, that's our bad. But yeah, Clockwork and Mendo have been moved. I think Clockwork went to a coaching role, right? An analyst or a coaching role. And then Mendo is going to a content creator role. So he's going to be able to really focus on his streaming and things like that. And honestly, I think those are, listen, I've given a lot of flack to Clockwork, and it's mostly just been because, like, they kept using him, and it was before he touched the stage. My opinion hasn't changed on Clockwork.
Right. You've had this opinion for a long time,
right? And part of that opinion is, like, he's got a really ridiculously deep game knowledge, right? Like, he comes from TF2. Like, this guy has been playing in the competitive esports world for a really, really long time, and I don't see any reason why he can't be a benefit to an Overwatch League team. I just didn't think he had the talent on what he supposedly specialized in going into it to really match up with your SBBs, your Carpes, those kind of things. So listen, he seems like the team really likes him. He gets along with the group. This is like, to me, when everybody was like, oh, Houston signed Kai, and they're laughing, it's like, yeah, but it's not the same job. Like, there's no just because he didn't do that job well doesn't mean he can't do this job well.
Right.
So I'm really even excited about the coaching signing as well. So yeah, things are definitely looking up for a team that just barely missed the playoffs the first time. So.
Yeah, it looks like they're putting themselves in a good position. It's gonna be interesting to see how. I'm interested to see if there's any noticeable performance differences between the season 1 teams and the season 2 expansion teams. Like, is there some expansion teams that just like skyrocket up? Is it none of the expansion teams are good because they didn't have that first season of experience. I'm very interested to see if any of that pops up, or maybe it's just random. Maybe it's just the best teams are going to win, and it doesn't matter.
It's really definitely hard to tell. You really don't know just looking at it. I tend to operate this way. I do the same thing in the NFL and everything, just because I've seen so much of this kind of thing. Like Tim Tebow was just the best quarterback in college football history, and nobody could touch him. And how long
Christian
did he
Laettner in college basketball too?
Right. And how long did he last in the NFL? It wasn't very long. Just because you were able to perform at a high level in the lower leagues doesn't mean you have what it takes to play against the best players in the world.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of right.
And so
I think there's a lot of people that really just assume like, oh, these standouts, and like if we just sign Runaway,
right,
we'll just be the best team in the world. And to me, signing Runaway and running them out there is a 2-season down the line play, right? Because I look at it like, okay, they're going to be average in the first season. If you sign a full contenders team, elevate them to a stage that they're not used to playing on.
They're going to maybe be average.
Maybe be average because they've got a lot of catch-up work to do that some of the other rosters won't have. They're just going to hit the ground running, some of them. And so I think you're going to see the biggest impact from contenders players when you supplement an existing roster with a single player who can just come in, be mechanical, and plug into a strategy that's already there. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be really fun to see this all play out. Everything with the two-way players, there will be more on that. We've got one of those signings officially as well here too.
Yep.
It's going to make things a whole lot of fun. And I could be completely wrong on that. Overwatch could be that game where it doesn't, what stage you're on. Like if you have the mechanical skill and the team strategy is there, like once you just quit your jobs and commit full time, you can just develop the strategies. That could very well be true. I'm not going to say it's not. But I think especially in our Discord, like there's this assumption that the top players and contenders or the top teams and contenders are just automatically better than team players that maybe are being traded right now or were just released. And I don't know that
the contenders players are the contenders players might be better than
some of the releases for sure.
I was told that I'd be able to start over the contenders players.
See, I wasn't gonna throw Milton under the bus. I was gonna throw Mayhem supports under the bus.
That's fair. But that's not as funny. I think what happened with Runaway is they're a good team, but they never won anything, right? They
won contenders.
Okay, they won contenders. Well, never mind. They never won Apex. That's what it was. They got to the finals in Apex a bunch of times, which is obviously a feat in and of itself. But like, I think it's part of they're a good team. Don't get me wrong, but it's also like the stupid pink jerseys and like they're more of a meme than anything. And I think people like conflate they take they're really popular and people really like them and people talk about them all the times and they're also pretty good, so they must be really, really good. And just like you start to half the story is meme, half of the story is about them being good, and eventually like the stories like blend together and we get this like perception of Runaway being like god tier unbeatable when it's like, well, they're not. So,
yeah, and to clarify, I don't know that meme's the right choice, but just like fan favorite, right? Like
fan favorite. They have pink.
The fan opinion is higher.
They have like pink 1950s like Greece. Like the women in Greece sweaters for their jerseys. I loved the jersey, but I also love really stupid, gaudy stuff. And that's exactly what those are.
Right.
But I think part of that gets conflated and like, I don't know. It's just one of those things where like you say it 1,000 times and people start to believe it. But I mean, they're also good. So, but we've seen both ends of the spectrum, right? We've seen, Lunatic High come in, become Soul Dynasty and just nope. And then we see London, which, I mean, they started out, they weren't really just one team, so they kind of, fused and became a greater than the sum of their parts. But I mean, we also saw in hockey the Golden Knights, which was a bunch of rejects and literally like cut players get to the Stanley Cup Finals. So maybe
in their first year as an expansion team.
Right. So maybe we'll see that happen in Overwatch League for season 2. That would be funny. If Toronto just like picks up all the cuts, like IDQD, Milton, the the Mayhem supports, just like this team that looks absolutely awful and was just like thrown together from cut players, just ends up doing well. It's possible that's not actually out of the realm of possibility, because like as much as we harp on these players, they're not bad players. They just, for one reason or another didn't quite work out. But enough enough about that. Let's move on. We actually only talked about one thing in that whole rant. I'm not even mad. Florida Mayhem traded for Zephyr, and Hagopin was promoted from the academy team to the main roster, and we saw the first two-way contract. I believe the first signed to a two-way contract. So
Yeah.
Mayhem making moves.
Yeah, traded for Zephyr. Listen, they cut two very, very consistent, very good off-tank players, and then they traded for Zephyr, who is inconsistent. I'm not going to say bad, because he's had his moments. He's a solid player.
Yeah.
But he was really inconsistent. And to me, Manitin or Zappas would probably have been better picks here to me. I don't know. I would have rather have kept one of those two, especially Zappas. But we all know I've been a big Zappas fan since before he even signed with Florida.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm a little leery on this off-tank move. I don't want it to be the only off-tank they get, because I don't know that you just want to go into the season and say Zephyr's my guy. Hago was a no-brainer to me. Him very similar to Janice, caught a lot of flack from analysts and us specifically.
Yeah, me.
because not because they were bad, because the team was worse when they played them.
Yep.
And so Hagopin is to me easily talented enough to belong on the Overwatch League stage. He's got some experience there, which just talked about is in our opinion a boost or a positive.
Yep.
Just because he was released doesn't mean anything bad. The Apply signing is different. The one thing that I think is really notable about this, I think Apply is from the US, but he's got like a South American name, so I'm not 100% certain on that. But this to me puts to rest any talks of being full Korean. They kept two Korean players in Awesome Guy and Saya Player, and then they also kept Tavik, and people are they just going to trade Tavik? What are they going to do? No, this to me says we're going to be going with a mixed roster here. But yeah, the two-way contract is really interesting. Listen, Apply really overlaps with Tavik's hero pool quite a bit. So I don't expect Apply to be playing much, but Tavik was, I think, like I was talking about it in Discord, I think he caught a bad rap previously in season 1. They had no main tank play whatsoever. And whether or not that was because Awesome Guy and Swoosh were both bad, or just the healing was so bad that the tank couldn't possibly make any space, even if he was doing exactly the right thing. I don't really know, but I do think that Tavik was at least questionable enough that you want a plan in the works, and Apply appears to be that plan. They want to lock him up. They want to get him to be able to quit his job and could devote himself full time to Overwatch. But I don't think they're going to call him up unless they need to bench Tavik, and he'll probably remain in contenders almost entirely. But this is their way of locking him up, claiming him, and this is, in my opinion, one of the first, if maybe second, because we don't know what KSF is yet over there for the Valiant. But a very big developmental signing. This is a player described as having really, really strong mechanical skill from everything I've seen so far. I haven't seen a ton of him play. But at the end of the day, I don't think the Florida Academy team was very strong, and so there was some issues there. And he's
they're better than the Mayhem were from the ratio was better.
right. To me, this would be a not a great signing if it wasn't for that it was a two-way contract, because now they're not trying to find ways to use them. They can send him down, just let Tavik focus on it. But in the off season, things like that, he can be more involved in the team's planning, decision making, meetings, stuff like that.
Well, and it could be that they're not sure about Tavik, but they want to give him the chance more than the other players that they released, where it's like, Tavik, you're here, you're gonna get your shot. If you do well, that's great, but we've got the developmental player, it's business, whatever. If you do well, you've got your spot, you can help build this player, but also mid-season trades are a thing, or mid-season signing window is a thing. So yeah, who knows? might see like that seems like a natural, like, okay, well, if they get Apply up and Tavik is not working out or wants to, they see an option to wheel and deal, like it seems like that would be a good thing for the Mayhem, and probably a good thing for Tavik too, because especially if they're like, as much as like I'm all for the like mix the rosters up as much as possible, it can't be easy for either side or the management to have a mixed language roster. It's just got to be a hassle. So I don't know, but I'm glad to see the Mayhem making moves, as they've been, one of my upper half teams, one of my upper half favorite teams. Not my top or
Hey,
my second.
and
Or
now
really
I'm pretty
third.
sure they have enough players on the roster. They can put 6 people on the stage if they
Right,
need to. So
right. If
we're
someone's
making
throwing
progress.
up, they don't have to play. Yeah, there's been a lot of.
No, they would, but they're able. If everybody's healthy, they're able.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. But they do need to they still need to have 2 more, right? They need 8 is the minimum.
8 is the minimum. Yep. Okay. More to come.
Gotcha. Okay, let's move on here. The unnamed DC expansion team has made some moves. They've got Wizard Hyung from NYXL and the aforementioned Janice, which again, I think that's a really great signing for DC, because that means NYXL doesn't have to play him anymore.
It's a great signing for New York.
Yeah, it was a great signing for NYXL here. But no, all jokes aside, like we've said it a lot of times, Janice is a very, very good tank. Just was not a good tank for NYXL.
Yeah,
and
very stylistically different from Mono, and the team didn't seem to work well around him when he came in for this one map, which game mode changed regularly. I think their plan for Janice didn't seem to make much sense.
Well,
and I think it's telling that he's going with his former coach, Wizard Hyung, leaving NYXL to go to the DC expansion team.
Yeah.
So now he can be the head coach here. And listen, he knows exactly what he's getting in Janice.
Yeah.
It's the first piece. They're going to be able to build around him players that are used to tanks of his style, things like that. Which I think is really important to remember.
Yep.
And I think it puts DC, on the fast track for the expansion. It helps to be the only one with a player, but right. Their main tank is super important in this league, and I think Janice certainly has it in him to play with some of the best tanks on the Overwatch League stage. So I think this is big for DC, and until I see what other main tanks go here, we do know a couple like Fact Fiction are available, but until we see where everybody shakes out, I think this is at least a very solid start for the DC team.
I mean, you think about what Fissure did for the LA Gladiators, and like Janice could very, very much could even potentially it's hard to compare the impact that he would have considering DC wasn't a team, but like DC could come out really strong. Janice is the type of player that you want to build around, and going into it with Wizard Hyung as the coach, like you said, and knowing that Janice is on your team, like you just sculpt the team around him. Like think about how like the difference for NYXL, like if NYXL had a reasonable strategy that wasn't so like focused around Jonak and his godlike ability, if instead like it was focused entirely around Janice, like you shift over Ark's focus, like Janice probably would have been dominating. It's just Janice is not Jonak and you can't have that same sort of impact. But he could very much so have that on DC. So I'm extremely, as much as I joke, I'm actually pretty excited to see that happen. Other moves that DC made, they signed Avala, who was formerly from Meta Bellum and Optic Academy, as well as MKL, not to be confused with Michael, the wannabe leak boy, to the coaching staff. So DC doing things unlike the Florida Mayhem and actually having a support staff ready for the team before they get there. So
and notably, not a big deal, but Avala will be the first female coach to enter into Overwatch League. So,
nice.
That is great to see. She was formerly from Metabellum and Optic Academy, and MKL used to coach with her, was an analyst for Optic Academy while she was there. And then MKL also worked with Last Night's Leftovers for the last season of Contenders there. So some solid signings. Yes, some very solid signings here for DC to get things started. Just like seeing them active. It's weird to see them announce stuff and like not and have like placeholder graphics and like placeholder names on Twitter and stuff.
Yeah,
Get your branding out
it's
there.
got
What
to
are you
be
doing?
Blizzard. I would bet money it's Blizzard that's waiting on it. Because like, why would you like? What benefit do you have to wait from like the if I'm the Toronto Yetis right now, what do I benefit from waiting? Like, I'm not getting people hyped about the brand. Like, it's diminishing returns, right? Because once we saw Toronto, like the peak of like, oh my God, Toronto, so sweet, so sweet. I'm going to be a Toronto fan no matter what. It's like it's not going. The hype isn't building more. So
Right.
like waiting is not helping. So I would. We have no way to confirm this realistically. It's almost certainly Blizzard or Overwatch League that is like saying to wait.
Yeah.
Because you don't gain, you're not like all you're doing is giving people time to change their mind. Because like if you come out and you got the sweet Yeti branding, it's awesome. You get the join the storm or the you know we the North like the Toronto Raptors do, or you get that branding built and you get that community built. They've done some. Toronto did a cool thing where they were actually like tweeting out to all the like regions that they're kind of covering. So they did Ontario, they did some other parts in Canada. They did shout out Buffalo Niagara region.
I shouted back.
Yeah, so did I. I literally went out my window and was like, Toronto Overwatch, and then they retweeted my tweet because
I
they
went
heard
to
me yell.
Twitter. I went to Twitter and I was like, "Leave my football team alone." Um, Tell Bon Jovi he can't have my Bills. But yeah, and listen, anybody that's wondering, we were very active in being among the first people to find the names for the
Season
initial
1.
brandings announcements. We are looking again, and I don't believe we've seen anything. There's an Atlanta team out there I've got my eye on, but they sure look like a football club to me, not a gaming
Wait, like a
organization.
football club or football club?
Football, because
Okay.
it's Atlanta and not
Not
Europe.
Uruguay,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've just never heard it called a football club unless you were talking about football club. But yeah, I think they probably learned since by we I mean Thornrain, and figured out they cracked the code for figuring out the team names. They maybe are doing things differently this
I
season.
don't know. At the end of the day, I think they have to apply for the trademarks, and those have to be public records. So I don't know
Yeah.
that they can hide them from us forever. But unless it's not got anything to do with football, and they are allowed to like put incorrect information in there to throw people off, I don't know. Me and Thornrain both kind of thought, and he said it earlier. It's we thought somebody did this to us last time, and they like put out an application.
The Shock did it.
But the Shock, I looked up their applications, and unless they retroactively went back in and edited them to be very clearly about esports and gaming peripherals and things like that.
Well, what the Shock did was they bought their Twitter account was formerly like arena football or like women's basketball or some other sport that wasn't like the San Francisco Shock had like thousand followers like before, like the second that we found out about it, like it already existed. Like it was like had placeholder stuff and was like San Francisco's premier amateur women's basketball league team. Like it had that on there and like had like 10,000 followers or something, but it ended up being SF Shock, the San Francisco Shock.
But I don't think their trademark application was doctored or changed in any way.
I don't think it was doctored,
but too long ago to remember.
Yeah, I remember us looking at something and it saying like computer peripherals, and we were like unsure about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's move on here to the LA Valiant, who traded for Kuki. Do they did they need Kookie? I feel
I mean,
like
they didn't not need Kookie, and I don't think Seoul wanted. I think they made up their mind that they don't want him to be their starter. So they're, for the Seoul side, this is fine. You're just freeing up a roster space. For the Valiant side, it's not like this player, no matter who they got, was going to bench Fate anyways.
right. That's why
So
I'm saying.
but you do want a backup, right? Like there's no reason not to bring in the backup. We're still, I think, at least I am still a huge believer in, if you don't have 12 players on your roster, you're not trying as hard as you possibly could be to win. So I think you need a backup, and I think this is fine for the Valiant. It's nothing that excites me because, like I said, this is a bench spot. This is Milton 2.0,
right?
To be perfect. But hopefully he's able to get a couple more scrim hours than Milton 1.0.
Yikes. Speaking of not getting scrim hours, Shanghai Dragons here.
Speaking of yikes.
Yeah, speaking of massive yikes. Shanghai Dragons signed Blue Haas as coach, formerly from Chengdu Pantera. So some much needed coaching staff brought in to the Shanghai Dragons. I think more so than any player, they need a backbone here, because they brought in players that on paper were not bad players, and they weren't top tier players. Yeah, not all of them were bad.
140 bad, I should say.
Right. They certainly weren't. Yeah, they certainly weren't garbage players. They just weren't, maybe not the best, but I don't think it necessarily mattered much who they brought in, unless of course they brought in a whole other team and just put on different jerseys, obviously. But like, it didn't really matter like which individual set of players they brought in. It wasn't going to help when you've got no support system here. So you really need to have the coach is an extremely important part of building up a team.
I love that they brought him in before they started signing players. Listen, they're not in the expansion team window, so they're not able to be making acquisitions right now. I don't believe they had an academy team, so there's nothing they could have done as far as call-ups are concerned yet. However, it's important to me to be bringing in your coach who's got to work with these guys and get everything squared away. Right. He should be the architect of your roster when you're resetting like this, and it's very important that they brought him in and were able to do that. I think it would be an absolute coup for them if they were able to pull in some Chengdu Pantera players onto this team, and having their former coach should do wonders for recruitment as far as that's concerned. So I think all in all, given this is the only thing they could have done, I think this was a very good big signing for Shanghai. I believe in you guys. 1-39, I believe.
Yeah, get that extra one. 2. Monkey Prince is saying that Shanghai does have an academy team, but do they have an academy team that has players that are worth bringing up? And do they have an academy team that has players that are worth bringing up that are old enough to play, is the question that I would ask. That's a Thorn Rain and Kyle, and as well as Monkey Prince question that I don't know the answer to. But yeah, Shanghai, like, I'm glad that they didn't I'm glad that they just went full, like, catatonic, like, get it out. Cut out the poison. We're starting over, and we're starting with the coach. Because, yeah, like you said, if the coach isn't helping make or actively making the decisions to sign the team themselves, like, who is? Like, who is making these decisions? Is it the same person that made the decisions last season?
The money? Yeah.
Is it the money that's talking? Like, literally, is it just a anthropomorphized bag of money saying, "Get me Chengdu Pantera," like the Sorting Hat from Harry Potter, except it's a money bag? I hope that exists. Someone really needs to draw that now. Like, okay, so here's the picture you need to draw. It looks like the Sorting Hat, except it's a bag of money, and it's like in a hall full of Overwatch League players, like free agents, and it just like they put the bag of money on their head and they go, "Shanghai Dragons." It's gonna be great. I want to film that movie now. But before I get even more derailed than that somehow, let's talk about the last piece of news here. San Francisco Shock have parted ways with their analyst Harsha.
Yeah, I think as the league expands, you're going to see a lot of this where analysts and assistant coaches leave their organizations, and just to be able to, worst case scenario, he's going to be able to get an analyst or an assistant coaching job with a different team.
Yeah.
He's not taking Crumbs' job. Crumbs is been Crumbs. I'm
Crumbs is the desk analyst.
Yeah, it's not definitely not Crumbs. Oh my God, what's the name of the?
What team? What team?
San Francisco's coach, the one that left Boston, went to San Francisco.
Oh, Krusty.
Krusty, yes, it was a C. Okay, at least I wasn't like the first 3 letters were the same. So
Krusty, like the crust of your pizza, and if you crumble up that crust, it leaves crumbs. I'll give it to you. There you go.
All right, so we got there. It was only 2 degrees of separation away from the right name. Yeah, so he wasn't going to take Krusty's job anytime soon. No. I think that's a lock. And I think Harsha's a ambitious guy who wants to head coach a team somewhere. So I would expect him to be hired by an expansion team, probably an NA team. If not as a head coach, as an assistant coach to somebody who's maybe a little less proven. So that way, if anything goes wrong there, he can move his way up within one organization. But I think he'd reached the highest job title he was going to get with the San Francisco Shock, and with all the extra opportunities, wanted to get there.
That makes 100% of the sense. Yeah, it's nice. It sucks to see someone leave, but like we're going to see Harsha, so like it's not actually a bad thing. It's not a bad thing for him. Maybe for the Shock, I don't know. But yeah, he's moving on for his own benefit, so that's good. All right, let's move on here too.
It's tournament talk.
Let's talk here about the World Cup. We've got two group stages worth of talking to do here, obviously, because we missed last week. For the Thailand group, we had China and Australia make it up to BlizzCon with
Sweden.
Yeah, 16-7 and 14-7 records respectively. Then Denmark, 2 technically 1 match out, but a 12-9 game record. And then Sweden, man, flop.
Yeah. There was a 3-way bubble here, which is actually kind of crazy. Like, this is your Wild Wild West group. If you want to just go watch one that's super hotly contested till the end, and going into literally the last match of the group, I believe we were trying to figure out who was going to make it in. And it was like, can Australia take a map against China, I think was the closing match. If they did, they were in BlizzCon. If they weren't, Denmark was going to go.
All right.
It was crazy. There were 3 teams, like I said, tied at the 3-2 overall match record. So the map record individually is what decided things. There was a 2 map edge here for Australia, because I think they went 3-2 to China, so that was great for them. Really almost pulled that one out. Again, Australia 2 World Cups in a row, maybe even 3. I don't know. I'm blanking on the first one. Really surprised me, stood out and played really, really well. Easily the most contested of the group stages. I think if you take either Denmark or Sweden and you put them in the next group stage we're going to talk about, we might have had 2 interesting groups going on. But
yeah.
Nonetheless, I thought China acquitted themselves fantastically, obviously going undefeated through the whole thing. Australia had made it close by losing to Denmark 3-1, and Denmark was a little kind of under my radar here. I didn't really expect them to have such an impact or to be such a big part of the way things were going to go down here. But again, there's a couple of Overwatch players here, Overwatch League players, or just the one, it looks like, in Kellex. And then a couple of the guys that Bob drafted had Danny in it on the off-tank role, stuff like that. So a really solid performance by Denmark. Sweden disappointed. Again, obviously, the cast of Owl Castaways didn't quite get it done.
Right. The land of misfit toys.
I didn't see a ton of them play.
Toys. Get it? Because they're on Misfits.
I did. I got it.
You don't get it.
Yeah, I didn't get to see a ton of Sweden in action here. I did see them get trounced by China. So they just were overall pretty disappointing. But at the end of the day, kudos to Australia, got the job done. So we will be seeing Custa in BlizzCon. So coming up in November, looking like that's going to be really exciting. And China, put themselves out there. I don't think this was a group that all of a sudden says, okay, this is a team that can easily have, be as 50-50 with the US or with South Korea or anything like that. But at the end of the day, they, clearly got themselves a puncher's chance here going into it, as a couple more map losses that I would have liked to have seen from a team that I would have thought was, up belonging in that top 4 conversation. Sure. But we will have to wait and see.
So here's my goal now. I need to get my shirt, which is back there, signed by the new Chinese World Cup team.
The goal is to again have it randomly thrown at you and again not realize
and have bare hands tell me at 2 a.m, like, why are you wearing that shirt? I'm like, because they don't let me into the restaurant if I'm not wearing one. Like, why are you wearing that shirt that is very clearly signed by the Chinese Overwatch World Cup team? Oh god,
I like how he was surprised you were wearing it. Like, what are we supposed to do with it?
He was surprised I was wearing it, but what was even funnier is that he was surprised that I was wearing it 6 hours into having been hanging out with each other. So I don't know who's to blame. It's definitely me. Okay, let's talk about here the French group stage here, the Paris group stage, rather. To the surprise of very few, we had France and the UK in the top 2. France with a nice 5-0. UK only losing to France. And then we had Netherlands, Germany, Italy, and Poland with the 0-5. I don't know. Was there really any chance of this not being? I mean, I remember people on Around the Payload were saying. People in chat on Around the Payload were saying they wouldn't be surprised if I specifically remember this. They said, wouldn't be surprised if France went 0-5. Literally had that said in chat. I remember it vividly. Someone said that. I don't remember who it was.
Listen, that would have made sense if they'd played in the U.S. qualifier.
Sure.
Or in the South Korean qualifier.
Sure.
I remember very specifically us talking about this, like the solved one, where like I didn't possibly see how the Netherlands or Germany or Italy or Poland were going to be able to really put together enough of a showing to be able to take down France and the UK. I thought those guys kind of got waved in a little bit. It did turn out to be that case. I will say this though, France did what they needed to do, right? Like they dropped 2 maps on the entire weekend. They crushed the UK 4-0 in their match there. But to me, the easy MVP of this was the French crowd. I'm so pumped that they have an Overwatch League team. I can't wait to see what their meetups and watch parties are like over there in France while those games are going on. They're going to get super into it. They were the best crowd, hands down to me. They were better than South Korea. They were better than the US for the World Cup. It was like listening to a soccer crowd, like a soccer match crowd. The diva bomb goes into the air and the crowd goes, oh, and they crescendo with it, right? Until it blows, it's, oh, nobody died. Yeah. Okay, we'll stop you. We'll stop but yeah, they just did an absolutely phenomenal job making everything super exciting over there. So shout outs to everybody that was in attendance. I know there was at least one from our Discord. Lee made the trek from the UK down to France to be able to see that. Must have been an absolute blast of a time. So congratulations to France and the UK. I didn't watch a super ton of this. I did watch France versus UK.
Yep, that's what I watched. After it was already done and dusted.
Right. And when that one wasn't even a great watch other than just seeing the crowd, I didn't delve too deep into it. But yeah, this was pretty solved going into it, I thought, and it did turn out to be that way. I guess the biggest surprise to me was I thought Germany acquitted themselves well in the past, but maybe they lost some players. I don't really recognize any of the guys that are there. Yeah. But I guess the same can really be said. Like there's only a handful of guys from the Netherlands that I really have any experience watching either. So.
Yeah. Before we go into the BlizzCon pairings, Monkey Prince with the investigative journalism here found it was Dreamcast's OW in the chat that was saying that France was bad, and there's screenshots to back it up. So get wrecked, son. Okay, let's move here and let's talk about BlizzCon, the round of 8, the final 8, the top 8 of BlizzCon 2018. We've got the pairings here. We've got France versus Canada, China, Finland, U.S. and UK, South Korea versus Australia.
Yep.
So let's start. Let's start with the top left here. France versus Canada. Who do you have? What's this match looking like?
To me, this is probably the most up in the air one. I'm going to lean Canada here because I think they performed well. They had a much tougher competition in their group, so I think they're a little more battle hardened. I also just think this, by sheer firepower on the roster alone, they're in a pretty good spot. So I'm going to lean Canada there, but it is super close.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised at all if France was able to take that one down. So of all the quarterfinals, this would be the quarterfinals matchups, I definitely think this is easily the closest, but I'll take Canada by a slight margin.
Yeah, it's tough. This
is from the meme of the week. This is your loser gets Quebec match.
Yeah, this is a real tough one. I think I lean towards Canada as well, but
Eileen signed your shirt behind it.
It's true. It is. That is true. Yep, it's still there. It hasn't faded off yet. Man, I want to pick France, but I also want to have U.S. and Canada in the finals. So I guess I'll pick Canada here.
The finals will be in the semifinals, I think. But anyway, I digress.
But I want. Let's move on here to the bottom match on that half of the bracket here. China versus Finland. What do you got?
Sure. I'm going to take Finland here. I've been really high on this team ever since they announced it. Listen, I love what China was able to do. Again, it's so hard to know when they're coming out of these groups, but just listen, they dropped 7 maps throughout their stage or their qualifier here. They did go 5-0, but again, I think it's a different story when you talk about even getting first place out of a group. And then you did have Finland coming out of second of their group. I mean, Finland took South Korea to 5. They were right on the edge with with 15 seconds left in map 5. I was sure Finland was going to win and take the 1 seed out of the group and leave. It just turned at the absolute final possible second. Could not have been much closer. So I'm until somebody beats Finland that's not named South Korea, I'm going to assume I was pretty right about them. And also, I think Finland versus either France or Canada in the semis would be super hype. So I really want to see that.
Yeah, when you put it like that, I completely forgot. It seems like it was forever ago that Finland did take South Korea that far, but I don't know, something about this Chinese team. Even though the margin was close, when you actually look at the game record, China had a game record of 16-7 with a match record of 5-0, and then Australia was 14-7, but they were 3-2. So China just won the correct ones and had a lot of 3-2s. That only means so much.
Finland had a better map record from second place.
Yeah,
with a loss.
True, and that's all fun and well. I don't know. I've got a feeling about China. I think I'm picking China here. Maybe it might not be close, but
it's not crazy. I'll say that. Like, I disagree with you, but it's not crazy. Like, China did look really strong. It's just it's what makes this so much fun, and what makes it so hard to predict is the different weights of what it meant to get through your qualifier, right? And that's what whoever got second place out of the South Korean qualifier, unless it was South Korea, I think was going to be probably underrated and probably end up with like a favorable match, unless they got paired against the US or Canada. I think it would have been like a favorable match. Look, Canada was second place too, so
yeah. All right, moving on here. US versus UK. I mean, this is easy clap US, right? Like, not close. Okay.
Yeah, we've won a war against that country already. I don't see why an Overwatch League match would be a problem.
Yeah. Christopher trash talking us. We breathe that trash.
I couldn't understand it through your accent, Christopher. Sorry.
We have football. That's what our lifeline. Right. That's what our lifeblood is. So not close. U.S. easy clap here.
Easy clap.
And South Korea versus Australia.
Speaking of easy claps, that was that one's probably not going to be super close. Listen, Australia did a wonderful job getting here, and I think they should remember that while they get waxed on the stage. It's going to probably be pretty brutal, but Listen, if anybody can walk them through getting beaten by a South Korean roster, it's Custa. I believe he can keep their head on their shoulders. Honestly, this one will be very telling to me in a very important match, but I do think the outcome is basically already decided with South Korea winning. But it's just like going to tell us a lot and really be a precursor to like how's the USA going to do against South Korea, right? Because that's not a question we know. But if Australia is able to take a map off South Korea, I'm going to be much more confident in the USA's chances to take that down. And then, listen, even if the USA doesn't do it, I think Finland, Canada, and France, and really all four of the teams on the other side have at least a puncher's chance to be able to take down South Korea. So, listen, if they dominate Australia, it's not going to tell us much. It's just going to be like, okay, we got what we thought we were going to get. But if they show any weakness whatsoever, I think it might be time to play some bets or something.
And if they show weakness, not only from the team momentum and like gauging it perspective, but the literal you have Arrow analyzing the video and be like, oh, this is their actual weakness that we can literally exploit. So that's awesome to know that we've got the crack team on the case. Okay, so that means the left side semifinals match. We'll pretend that you are correct here, Death. So we're going Canada versus Finland. Who do you have?
Finland. Easy clap.
Really?
Yeah, listen, I really think Finland is above Canada at the moment, right? Like I wanted Canada, if I was going to keep them in that top, if my top three was going to remain a top four, which it was before any of the qualifiers went out, I thought Canada was going to have to play the US a little closer. They did win a map against us, but overall, watching that series, it was a decisive USA victory there. So I'm not 100% sure Canada is going to be able to pull it together. I think Finland I don't know. I've been really high on them, so this is the one where I could just easily be super wrong. But listen, if I have to pick two players to start a team, right? Like it's probably Fraggy and Lixer, right? And then you also give me Shaz and Big Goose. Like it's so easy to forget.
That should just be an Overwatch League team.
Right. Honestly. It's so easy to forget how stacked Finland is.
That was Giganti, wasn't it? They were all on Giganti.
A good portion of it was Zappis and Lixer, Fraggy. The only one I think who wasn't was Taimu. And I'm blanking on who was the other DPS player. Oh, Davin, I think, right? Was it Davin? I don't know. But anyways,
Davin was 1, 2, 3. I could be wrong.
This is a super stacked roster as I look at it, and I was really impressed with them. Again, you can't underestimate how valuable it was to take South Korea to 5 when you want me to evaluate your chances. So I'm going to move Finland into the finals.
Okay, so we have Deathbow calling Finland in the finals. I honestly don't think I disagree with you there, especially if they're playing against Canada.
Yeah, they're the favorites. Like I don't feel like I'm saying anything too crazy here.
Okay, so U.S. versus South Korea.
Sure, I'm going to be there, and I like to think that I'm loud enough that I can impact the outcome of this match.
You are massively underestimating how loud it is going to be in there.
I don't think I am, but I'm just going to be that pumped for this particular match. I almost wish I was there last year for South Korea versus the United States,
so
just because Bare Hands. No, I just wanted to boo Bare Hands.
Oh, he got it. He got the booing. Believe me.
I wanted to do it. Like it's not enough that he receives the booing. I wanted to be the one to do it, but I guess it's good I wasn't because he would have won that argument in the end. But yeah, no, listen, I'm super pumped for this one. This is to me the finals. This is the most important one. Again, Finland versus South Korea, if it happens, I think could be as well. But I think the U.S. roster, I've got a feeling about them. I do really like what they're doing, and I don't know, seeing Finland take South Korea that close makes me think they're beatable, right? Because there's almost like an all-star feel to this South Korean roster. And what's one thing all-star teams almost never do? Let's take it super seriously. I think if South Korea was nose to the grindstone, like if this was last year and these guys are like trying to make their way into Overwatch League and solidify their, maybe just even if you're going to be signed and you're confident in that, you're just trying to put together a star performance to impact how much money you're going to be making that year. This is all stuff that doesn't impact this roster anymore. So I don't know that they're going to be going as hard as maybe the U.S. will be, because
Yeah.
the U.S., everybody else is so sick of South Korea winning this thing
Mm-hmm.
that that's enough of a motivation here. I'm going to lean with my heart here. My head does tell me South Korea. When you look at the roster, it's so hard to pick against them. But I'm going to let my desires carry over and say Muma easy clap 4-0. No, it's going to be a close match, but I'm going to pick the U.S. because I want it to happen.
I couldn't pick the U.S. faster. Easiest U.S. in my life. Because with the World Cup, you can never you literally are incentivized, and the whole point of the event is to pick favorites. You're supposed to root for the team that you come from. So I'm windmill slamming U.S. here. Okay.
If I wasn't going to be there, I would have taken South Korea just to disagree with you, but I don't want to. You know, I just start waving my flag.
We're wearing nothing but red, white. Don't bring anything that's not red, white, and blue to the arena. Just
so I got to go buy red, white, and blue stuff.
You got one thing behind you. Get it tailored. Okay, so in that scenario, that puts USA versus Finland in the grand finals for the Overwatch World Cup 2018. Now let's clear the slate of picking favorites for the finals here. Pen to paper, who are you picking to win here?
So hard. It's so hard.
If this is what happens, you love your country? Do you love Linkser?
I love both of them so much. I mean, if it was literally that, I'm not like a nationalist kind of guy. I buy into it when it's convenient.
No. It's just on paper. If you just had to place a bet to maximize your money and there's no emotion behind it, who are you picking to win here?
See, I'm going to give a slight advantage to the USA because I think tank line is more important than support. And I think we have a better tank line than Finland does, but I think they have a better support line. But honestly, at the end of the day, support is what keeps your tanks alive, right? So like the fact that they have such a strong support, if Fraggy's playing like an absolute beast and the support's able to keep line of sight on him, keep him up, I really do think, that it will be just razor thin. If we get to USA versus Finland in the finals, it's going to be a match to remember. I think it'll go the full distance. It'll be everything we could possibly ask for here. Meta might be a little important as well, but I don't think I've seen anything on the patch notes upcoming. And, unless there's a secret Torb god buried on one of these rosters that we don't know about.
Maybe it'll be a new patch Torb. Maybe it'll be Molten Core Splatoon Torb.
Yeah, but again, like right now, even when you look at it, like as good as I think Linkser is on plenty of other heroes like Genji, things like that. When I look at Finland, I go, well, who's going to play their Doomfist? And I don't really come up with a firm answer on that. It probably is Linkser, but he's to me the best Widowmaker in the world. So if we were on stage 4 patch and it was Widowmaker everywhere, then I would probably be more inclined to pick Finland in this one. But at the end of the day, right now, if it was played on the current patch that I get to play after the show when I go into comp, I think the USA would have an advantage, just because I know who their Doomfist is. That's Sinatra. Right. He's very, very good at it. And I don't know that we have that answer for Finland because they didn't play on this patch when their group qualifier was up.
All right, so we have Deathblow's bracket filled out. We can judge it on the way. We can judge it as we get there.
USA.
So, okay, so what I will say, I'm 100% blindly rooting for and want USA to win. However, there's a small caveat here. If USA loses, we don't have to watch the matches and we can go explore the rest of the con. So that's just something to keep in mind logistically for the weekend. But
I mean, it's a good point. But I'll say this: if the USA loses, I'm going to need to find a Finland flag and just start waving it until my arms fall off. I'm not going away from the arena just because of that. But
you say that, but you have not walked into the Enchanted Forest. You have not gone to the what is the thing? What is the like fair, the like cartoon or the carnival?
Dark
Moon Fair. You've not been in the literal Dark Moon Fair, which is at BlizzCon. Like they literally have it set up on the upstairs, and you walk into the Dark Moon Fair. Oh yeah, your mind is going to be blown by like this con. This is like no other con you've been to.
Listen, I have some idea, but obviously it's nothing until you experience it. But there's a reason it's on my bucket list, so I'm very excited.
Yeah. You know how like PAX is like it's a cons con, and there's a bunch of booths and stuff, and like it's very like, oh, we're trying to sell you stuff, and this is advertising. No. This is more like a theme park that you're walking into the world of Blizzard. But I don't.
Why wouldn't you say of Warcraft?
Because I wouldn't go if that were the case. Actually, yes, I 100% would. Are you kidding me?
Play that game or no? That's a cool world.
Yeah, that is a really cool world. I also like Warcraft lore. So, Warcraft 4 confirmed. I don't need to sell BlizzCon. It already sells out all the time.
It's sold out.
Yeah, I don't need to be a spokesperson for BlizzCon. It sells itself. But that's gonna be it for this episode. We're right about on time too. Any of the last minute stuff that we want to talk about before we go?
No, I think that just about covers it. Again, sorry about last week. Hopefully you've had just a terrible Monday that you can sympathize with. But yeah, we should be full bore until we leave for BlizzCon. So this won't be the last time we do a little preview on the World Cup, I'm sure. So make sure you guys tune in and just join the Discord, discord.me/High Noon Podcast. If you're going to be going to BlizzCon,
yes,
we would love to meet up with you. We don't have plans for a fan meetup right now because this is our big opportunity to like network with absolutely everybody at Blizzard and on the other podcasts. And we got to see a couple, a handful of those people in New York, but now we're like going to their home turf. So we want to try to hang out with many of the community people.
Yes. And now I forgot, I can actually officially announce this. I am going to be doing the Overwatch panel at Con Before the Storm. So if you're going to be at BlizzCon and you're going to Con Before the Storm, the day before BlizzCon, I will be doing the Overwatch panel with Totally Drunk, Blazing Bob, I think is doing it, and
Not Rob.
Icy Sorrow, and Not Rob.
Yeah, Not Rob's moderating.
Oh, Not Rob's moderating. Okay, cool. So yeah, the cast and crew of many of your favorite podcasts are going to be there, and I'm sure Deathblow is going to be in the front row.
The rest of us will be in the crowd heckling the entire panel. So
yes,
feel free to.
That's what happened. I literally booed the panel last time. I think we said
Totem.
I said Totem. I definitely said Totem. I said Totem before Bob. But yeah, so if you're going to be there, once we get a little bit closer, we'll start a channel in there, and so we can communicate for BlizzCon. But that is going to be it, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. If you are a podcast listener and you want to tune into the show live, you can see we have in the past weeks and months we've started to interact with Twitch chat a lot more, mostly because we have our essentially the Tony Reale stats guy of Monkey Prince live in the chat, stat correcting us at all times, as well as a lot of other folks who love to do the live. So you can always go to twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. Mondays at 7 Eastern for this show, but usually Tuesdays is going to be around the payload, and then the interviews I try to do them on Tuesdays, but it really depends on the schedules of the guests. But usually right around 7 Eastern, twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. But you can follow us everywhere else, YouTube, iTunes, all that good stuff. Search for High Noon Podcast. You can find us there. And leave us a 5-star review on iTunes as well. But that is going to be it, guys, for Deathblow. I'm the Blevins. And remember, it's High Noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. Threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
But BlizzCon literally is like Disney World, except it's Blizzard, and also you get a bunch of free stuff and a lot of exclusive stuff, and it's not just corporate. It's the greatest place on earth. It's the greatest place on earth.